And we're live.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Moonshiners Racing, presented by Depot Street Sports. I'm your host, Michael Rizzo, joined with Zachary Kendall and Bunny. Aiden might be joining us here shortly, but we'll get to that. Guys, how are we doing?
Well, I guess since Aiden's here, I guess I have to start it off. I'm doing all right. I wish the race was a little better, honestly, in terms of racing product, whatnot. That was a real snoozer for like the first 300 laps. And then, NASCAR decides to throw a bunch of cautions, and I guess not cautions, but they threw that one caution, then Bubba Wallace ran into Hocevar and all that, and then it got a little exciting. End up with a surprise winner, in my opinion, so I guess we're here to talk about that, but I'm doing all right.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It was pretty much, a boring race. Was shocked that Denny couldn't run him down and Elliott got the win this week, but overall, this was kind of a filler race in the schedule, and I really hate it being a short track at Martinsville.
Yeah, this race had all the feelings of a late, 2010s Pocono race where you just kind of slept through it in a way. And it sucks that it happens to be this is how Martinsville is. It really does suck because this track put on show after show after show within the Gen 6 car. And there was a lot of problems with the Gen 6 car, but one thing that it did not have a problem, and that was putting on a damn good race when it came to Bristol. Wow, I can't believe Martinsville. There we go. The two tracks that we're going to be up here in the next couple weeks. Sucks that's not what we got, but we got a typical short track guy and being Denny Hamlin, dominating the day, led over almost 300 laps, but did not lead the important laps there at the end. Got behind on pit strategy with Chase Elliott, and Chase Elliott gets the win. Guys, thoughts on Chase Elliott and Denny Hamlin and Chase Elliott getting the win?
Yeah, first off with Hamlin, yeah, it sucks for him and obviously his fans to lose a race like that. But part of the reason why you watch these races and part of the reason why these races matter so much and are so long is because you don't know what could happen. Something could happen on a flip of a dime, and you end up losing a race like that. And just like the little tiny mistakes, the little miscues play big dividends. And Elliott and Alan Gustafson, Chase Elliott's crew chief, which he gets a lot of flack for obviously not being the greatest crew chief in the world, but he's definitely serviceable and solid. And I'm not a Chase Elliott fan, so I'm not calling for his job or anything like that. But he did a good job, a good aggressive call. He did get a little lucky with the caution coming out because of debris on the pit road. I think it was like a brake rotor or something that was laying on the pit road, so they threw the caution. It's not shocking that NASCAR threw the caution there. They've done that in the past. It just probably is an annoying caution to have, considering it wasn't like on the actual like racetrack. So technically, you could have seen like someone just go out there and get it. It would have been no problem, but they threw a caution anyway, and Elliott ended up getting the track position. And then one other key player in this that allowed, I feel like, for all this to happen is that Ross Chastain didn't pit. He didn't pit at all. He tried to get track position, and that led him to be on the inside because he wasn't going to pick the outside for no reason. And so on that initial second to last restart, you saw Hamlin have to take the front row, as he should. He was like on brand new tires, but since he was on brand new tires, he couldn't fire off well. He spun them, and that allowed Chastain to get in front of him entering turn one, and that allowed Elliott to get underneath Hamlin. They battled it out before that Bubba Wallace Hocevar wreck, and Elliott ended up having the nose in front of it, Hamlin's car, and he got awarded second place. And then on the next final restart, he ended up picking the front row. He didn't spin his tires like Hamlin did. He got out in front. I would also say that Blaney was doing a good job of also allowing Hamlin and him to battle it out. And so Hamlin couldn't clear Blaney easily until he pile drove him in the wall. But Elliott, it's sometimes you just win these races off of circumstance. And I feel like this is part of a circumstance win. Not saying that he didn't deserve to win it, because he did do a good job of maintaining the gap those last like 80 laps or whatever on Hamlin and all that. But obviously, Hamlin being the dominant car, it does sting a little bit that, just for his fans, that he doesn't come home with a trophy, especially at a track like Martinsville. That track means a lot to him, and at Richmond too, considering he's from Virginia. But for Chase Elliott, a first Hendrick Motorsports win, it's not that shocking that it comes at Martinsville. Hendrick's playground has been at Martinsville. What they have all the wins and all the grandfather clocks and all the trophies, all the laps led and whatnot, and they got a little luck. Sometimes you need a little luck to win these races, obviously, and that played out on Sunday. And Elliott came home with a popular win, I would say, obviously, because obviously he's the most popular driver. But obviously, if you watch this race, Hamlin was definitely the clear-cut favorite. It just didn't work out.
Yeah, Hamlin wanted this one, being in his hometown or his home racetrack, being from Virginia, and everything that he's had go on, family, friends, everybody being there. This was probably the race that he had circled on the calendar. Like, this one's going to mean more. But Elliott, Gustav's crew chief, Chase Elliott, I can't say the dadgum name tonight, but no, that was a ballsy freaking call, because it could have went one of two ways. And Elliott, he had to have what happened to win the race. He was not a big major player at all throughout the day, and then he turned around and he won the race. Like I said earlier, I was really, really shocked that he was able to pull this off, because I felt like Hamlin, even in lap traffic and getting caught up in dirty air, he was able to make his way through the field. He was able to battle, stay in the lead, didn't really have much competition for most of the race. But in the end of the day, it's Hamlin come away with the most points out of the weekend. Even though the Chase won the week, he still come away and he did not lose anything to the field. So, I mean, as much as you want to win, that's one of those that you can put down for the rest of the year that's probably going to mean quite a bit. You didn't win the race, but you come away with the most points for the weekend. That's really going to add up for him probably as the season unfolds and we go through that summer months, to where he starts chipping away. I really think that at the end of the season, we're going to see Denny up at the top. But yeah, I mean, kudos to Denny, kudos to Elliott and Gustafson. And I don't know that I could have made that call during the race, because it was either going to be do or die, and he was running in the back. So you had to do something that played out. And of course, it was going to be Hendrick that pulled off the win.
To me, I thought it was a great call. I really did. And all the Chase sexuals out there, yeah, that's their name of their fan base, they absolutely despise Alan Gustafson for whatever reason. If I was a fan of, I'm a fan of multiple different drivers. I'd love to have Alan Gustafson as my crew chief, and I like the two crew chiefs of my two drivers. But Alan Gustafson, he's risky. He will have these pitch strategies, these calls that are a bit riskier than your average call, especially when you're running 10th all day and you can't. It's hard to pass. The way that this car is at the short tracks, it's really hard to pass. So what are you going to have to do to make yourself pass? Get yourself up to the front. Be different than the leader. If you're just going to follow the leader all day, you're never going to pass him. You never will, unless the leader has an issue. And Denny Hamlin was on it. He led almost 300 laps. You are not going to just pass him based on speed. You're going to have to pass him based on something else, that being a pitch strategy. Now, if you looked at it, sure, his at the time of the caution that came out for the, your debris caution, sure, Chase Elliott was having the probably the slowest car on track. He was starting to lose spots, but you got to think about the net positive. Pit stops were just about to start up within the next 20 laps. He probably would have fell back to about 8th or so, 7th or 8th, which is 3 spots better than where he was running all day long. So still, that was a net positive pit strategy. Now, it just so happened to luck out that a caution happened. He was right there up in the front, and he went on to win the race with everything that happened late. So for all the Chase Elliott fans, Alan Gustafson is a great crew chief, because that was one heck of a pit call. And I think probably the best pit call of the season so far, just based on where they were before and after obviously getting the win. As for Denny Hamlin, though, it seemed like he had a loose tire that last pit stop. He could not overcome the loose wheel. He could not really get close enough to Chase Elliott. And even if he did get close enough, that's when the lap traffic came into play, and he just couldn't do anything with it. And it sucks for Denny Hamlin, but Bunny, you brought it up. best points day out of everybody at the track, regardless of not getting the win. And he's still up there in the top 3 in points. And I think Jason Denny, man, that they are going to be up there fighting with Tyler Reddick for that regular season championship. Let's move on to the elephant in the room, that being Bubba Wallace's blow up that happened late in the race. I'll start off, since I'm sure everyone wants to know my opinion as the Bubba Wallace fan of the group. That was just idiotic. I think this will count as my hangover of the week. We're going to do it early, I guess you could say, but just stupid. Just what are you doing? You have running 12th to 15th all day. At that point, you got past 30 wide going into turn 1, drop back to 19th. If you don't have it on that certain day, you just got to take what you get and get the points, especially after a week where you finish 34th. You just got to take what you get, even though this is Bubba's favorite track. He loves this track. He always thinks he has a shot at the win. He started great on Saturday, great in practice, fastest car in practice, didn't make it in qualifying, started 15th. And for whatever reason, 2311 just cannot race at a short track on Sundays. They can at Saturdays, but not on Sundays. And he just, got the emotions, got the best of him, and just drove through that inside line. I will say, though, if you watch the onboard camera and audio, he was not flooring it like everyone expected. He kind of just, the bottom line after a restart, totally just stacked up. And instead of just letting everyone get through the corner, he said, nah, F it. I'm just going to, hit the gas before everyone else does and just drive through everybody. I will also say, you're Bubba Wallace. You're never going to get the benefit of the doubt in these situations just because you. So don't give the haters something to say. And I will also say, if the roles were reversed and that was Carson Hocevar that was doing that rather than Bubba, it'd be something like, oh, that's a young Dale Earnhardt. Yeah, he's good at this stuff. Yeah, he's just aggressive, getting in a better position. I just want to make that point clear. So people calling for Bubba Wallace to be out of NASCAR, calm down. Okay, go back and read your fake Facebook stories. But guys, go on. I want to hear your take on this one.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Is like, they're definitely, after that incident, someone's going to make like an AI quote of Bubba Wallace saying something about that accident, and everyone's going to be crying on Facebook about it because how the boomers are and how the people on Facebook are. But no, obviously it's a bad look and it's a bad result for Bubba because he was coming into that weekend 3rd in points. He now left 11th in points, and points are at a premium. And when you're having like a rough day like he wasn't really getting a lot of stage points. He wasn't really like flashing top end speed. This is the one type of track that Rizzo, you would admit that 2311 needs some work at, which is kind of shocking considering that Denny Hamlin obviously is the part owner of this team, and he dominated the race and he continues to dominate Martinsville. So I'm a little shocked to see that 2311 has struggled this much at Martinsville. But yeah, he wasn't running particularly great. He was running around like, I think, 15th place all day, and you want to. I think Michael, you said you want to minimize the risk and minimize the losses you have, and how you do that is that you don't do dumb stuff like this. He obviously in his post wreck interview at the Care Center, he's like, I just overdrove the corner and I'm just like kind of side eyeing that doesn't sound right, because I don't think Natalie Decker would even pull off a move like that. But for Bubba, he's been known to lose his cool sometimes. Obviously, we all remember the Las Vegas incident with Kyle Larson. And it seemed like he'd gotten better at this, and especially he doesn't need to do that stuff when, his new crew chief that he got last year has him up front more often. I feel like he's more happier that way, obviously, because he's running well week to week. But, at Martinsville, he lost his cool. And, it's unfortunate because, the end result was, again, Landon Castle would say it best. Rule number 1 in stock car racing is learn how to wreck somebody without wrecking yourself. And if he was trying to wreck Hocevar, then unfortunately it didn't work, because Hocevar still came home in 17th, and he came home in like 34th or something. Just an idiotic move that you hope that he doesn't, obviously carry over from this week because, he needs to be running well and he needs to not just be doing these dumb moves on the track because you got to be smarter than that.
Yeah, the interview after the wreck in the garage, that was just a very politically correct answer that was not going to get him fined or in the holler. It was. And for me, I think it goes back to what I said a few weeks ago, is Bubba getting frustrated. He's running the best that he ever has through this part of the season. But is it more of that jealousy side of it and the frustration? You all said it. It's his favorite track. But, look at the competition that you're going up against. This is Denny's race. This is Hendrick's race. Yeah, you're having a bad day, but don't blow it. This is the best that you've run throughout your whole career. Kind of grab that, embrace that moment and don't do anything stupid. Rizzo, I agree with the host of our comparison that you did, 110%. If it would have been him, this would have been flipped a totally different way. And I hate that for Bubba. Bubba's not looked at the same way as everybody else in certain senses, and host of ours a good comparison to that. But Bubba's just got to pull it together and not drift down that path of getting in his own head. Yet just take the hits and go on, because you lost potentially 20-some points there. And you can't have that being in that competitive of a car and that race team doing what they've been doing all year long.
Yeah. Glad to see what you guys had to say on that one. It definitely sucks as a Bubba fan watching that at a track that I thought he was going to do somewhat decent at. But yeah, especially when points are involved, you can't be doing that. Especially when Denny Hamlin says the standard is for him and Reddick to fight for a championship, fight to get far in the chase and be there at the end. You can't be doing that, falling from third in points to tied for eighth and sitting in 11th at the current moment. So. Anyway, let's move on, and I'm sure Aiden's going to have a lot to talk about this one. Denny Hamlin gives Blaney no room coming off turn 4. Blaney was fighting for a top 5, top 3 finish. Probably could have finished second, honestly. And at that point, maybe Blaney's car was a little bit better at that point. But he left them no room. Thoughts on this one, guys?
First off, hi, howdy, I'm here. Whatever you do not plan on joining a podcast. Then right before that, play football, play basketball, go do a workout, add cardio and core to it, and forget about the podcast. So don't do that. Anyways, I am exhausted, by the way. Anyways, yeah, Denny just I ran him into the wall, and for some reason, for Denny Hamlin, this is just a common thing. It's so annoying. Denny Hamlin is one of those drivers I want to root for. I want to be on Denny Hamlin's side. He's kind of the people of the fans at this point, like with his podcast, what he wants NASCAR to do. He does this. He's a great spokesperson, a great guy off the track, and then he just does stuff like this where it's like, why? Like it just why? Like, it's so frustrated. It was not a good Martinsville race in general, but I can forgive a bad race when my favorite driver at least does well there. Like you said, Blaney probably he definitely had a better car than Elliott. He had probably, I think, the second best car. Denny Hamlin had the best car. Blaney had the second best car. And I was really angry about it because I knew when Blaney got back there, the track was really difficult to pass on. There was not a lot of passing going on. He wasn't going to get back to where he should have been. Still finished in 6th place, though. But, I mean, I was frustrated. I was really hoping to get some points on Reddick as a Blaney fan. Obviously, I kind of knew going in that if Blaney needs to gain points on Reddick and he needs to do it here at Martinsville, Reddick historically has not been super good here. So yeah, I was frustrated. Probably not as frustrated as I would have been if he finished 20th, but still got 6th place. But yeah.
Damn, that's not really the Aiden rant that we were all hoping for. Yeah. I said it in the moment when it happened. I was like, if you're a driver and it's at the tail end of the race, which is what this was, you got to stop giving Ham on the inside. I mean, everyone that's on the outside of him is, vulnerable. And I'm not sure he can say that he doesn't mean to do it. And obviously, the replays show that, with these next gen cars or the Gen 7 cars, whatever you want to call it, same thing. The pipes, flame coming out of the pipes and shows that he's obviously off the gas, not trying to keep going up the track. But, the guy on the outside is going to be the guy that's more vulnerable to hit the wall. And he's done this to Chastain at Pocono, did it to Larson at Pocono, did it to Elliott at Charlotte, did it to Blaney here, did it to Bubba Wallace, his own car at Kansas. I mean, he keeps doing this. I mean, but it's not shocking. But, sometimes, you need, again, NASCAR needs drivers that ruffle feathers, and that's why everyone is praising Carson Hocevar for what he's doing. That's why some people do like Hamlin for what he does and what he stands for, and I agree. Hamlin is the one driver that is going to try and do better for the sport itself, because obviously it was his team that was involved in the lawsuit with NASCAR. And his podcast is really great to listen to. I listen to it a lot, along with the Dale Jr. download and all that. But I'm just waiting for somebody to do it back to him. No one has been able to do it back to him. So I don't know who that would be, but I would hope it'd be somebody just to do it to him, because it'd be hilarious to watch. Because again, he's on the receiving end of this, more times than not, of not damaging his car, and the other guy does get damaged. I would also say though that maybe this accident here it wasn't a caution, but this little scuffle potentially could have hurt Hamlin's car there at the end. We don't know what it did with the body, inside of it. Maybe something broke. That wasn't detrimental to either one, because I thought for a second there, I thought Blaney was going to drop back, have to pit because he had a broken toe link, but that wasn't the case. So that's obviously good luck on his part for obviously his car not breaking. He still came home again in a respectable 6th place finish. But yeah, I think Hamlin getting a little damage and maybe some of the tires wearing hurt his chances of catching Elliott there. I don't know. I'm not working on that car, so I have no idea. I didn't expect it or anything like that. But again, Hamlin, he just continues to have these instances where he doesn't seem to get into somebody, but then in the initial moment, he did.
Yeah, I mean, Zachary, give Ross Chastain or Hocevar the time, and Hamlin will get his payback. But for me, I think Denny kind of knows what's on the line here, and everybody's in his way. Do I think he's just going to go out there and bully and push everybody around? No. But with that same note, he knew that he had to beat Blaney for the race win. At that point, he knew that was the battle for the win, because he thought that at that point in time he could overtake Elliott. And I think that's what he was doing. He was going to try to get in front of Blaney and try to grow the lead, overtake Elliott. He cruises on to victory, and it didn't turn out that way. And but at that point in time, I do feel like that was the race for the win there, and he knew he had to get it off the start. And Blaney, I feel like, probably knew that too, that if whoever got the lead and was able to stretch it out there was probably going to win the race. But Hamlin's kind of grew into the role of that wily veteran. For most of his career, nobody really liked him. He was on everybody's shit list. And now at this point in time, he's more likable. I've become more fond of Denny because of the podcast. I'm not going to lie. And I don't know that he's going to get as much flack for doing something like that as some of these other guys would, because Denny will back up that move. So I don't have much else to say on this one.
Yeah, Denny's Denny, man. He's gonna do that kind of stuff. He knew in the moment that he probably thought, all right, I just had to get past Ross Chastain. He goes, I know I'm faster than Chase Elliott. I've been faster than him all day. I get back to the lead. The only guy he knew that he had to really race, and he was racing all day, was Ryan Blaney. So he was not going to give him room. Obviously, Ryan Blaney didn't deserve that. But again, it's Denny Hamlin, and you guys have all said it. We've seen this multiple times from Denny Hamlin where he's just run guys with no room. No room. I will never forget where I was at when I was watching that Kansas race last year with Bubba Wallace having a chance to win, go to the round of 8, and then he just doors him into the wall, just drives him straight into the wall. Turn 4, gives the win to Chase Elliott. And every time he does this, he gives the win to Chase Elliott or a Hendrick car. Just shocking. But anyway, yeah, it's annoying at times when he does this. But yeah, at the same time, same thing you guys said. As he gets older, he has that podcast. It's hard not to root for Denny, but at the same time, it's like, dude, come on, stop doing this. Yeah. But anyway, let's move on and talk about the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. Justin Allgaier gets yet another win. You know how last week we had that conversation about Justin Allgaier and the Hall of Fame? Well, he's just adding to that win total. Gets another win. Guys, thoughts on the O'Reilly Auto Parts race with Justin Allgaier getting the win?
I mean, I didn't watch all of it, but the parts I did watch, it was just a typical O'Reilly series race at Martinsville. You saw this previously the past couple of years, especially where on restarts everyone's just going to be going, unless you're Pulliam on that one restart where he just missed a gear and caused a big accident. But usually, typically, obviously, at these races, again, a lot of these guys are younger. A lot of these guys don't have as much respect for their equipment, unfortunately. And that's what you saw in this race where you have a bunch of accidents and you just hope that you're up front basically all day long to avoid all that. And for Allgaier, I saw that he won a stage in stage 2, I think. And then he obviously won the race. Just a good all-around day for Junior Motorsports. I think all 4 of their cars ended up in like the top 10, besides maybe not Roger Carruth because he got into Jesse Love late, but still another very solid day at the office for Junior Motorsports. And for Allgaier, obviously you said it, coming off the whole discussion about whether he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame or not. I mean, bro's just going out there and kicking everybody's ass. It seems like it's either him or it's Jesse Love. And he's the veteran of the O'Reilly series. He's the guy that runs it full time. Other than when Cup drivers come down, obviously, and put a stomping on the field. If you're Kyle Larson, or Christopher Bell, or maybe somebody like that. But Allgaier, he's getting good finishes. He's just doing his thing. We all thought that it was going to be a battle between him and Jesse Love, and he's doing a good job of building that cushion for his points because he just keeps on winning no matter where it's at, whether it's Darlington or whether it's here at Martinsville. So it's just a good all-around day for him, a good all-around day for Junior Motorsports.
Yeah, it was a good race for Junior Motorsports. I mean, they've continuously had a great year, and then Justin Allgaier, man, he's aging like fine wine, just continuously getting these wins. If you don't think he's the favorite to win the championship, especially after this week, I don't know what you're doing, because I don't know what you're watching. He is head and shoulders above everybody right now. That's even over the defending champ of Jesse Love. One more bring up here, Jesse Love and Raja Carruth. They had a little scuffle there after the race. Was in the closing laps of the race, and then they brought it off the racetrack. They were having a discussion, and then Jesse Love's crew chief, Danny Stockman, came in there hot and heavy, and he was like, "Boy, you better buckle your seatbelts tighter." He said something along those lines and was acting like an idiot. And then the two, 21 and 20-year-old drivers said, "Hey, let us talk about it. You go over there." it was kind of funny that the two 20-year-olds were more mature than the 10 crew chiefs that were yelling at each other. But guys, thoughts on their scuffle, their run-in, and their reaction at the end?
Raja, has been impressive. I feel like for the start of the year, for what my expectations were. Sure, I thought he was going to be able to make the chase for the O'Reilly Series if he could get a good enough results in the time that he spent with Junior Motorsports in that '88 car. And there at the end, I think he just overstepped a little bit. Being still a young driver like he is, he's still fairly new to this series. He basically just drove trucks for like the last 3 years and very, very little, if any, O'Reilly starts. So, it was unfortunate that, he ended up knocking Jesse Love out of the way. But sometimes, that happens, especially at Martinsville when you can, bump and run these guys in these cars. You can't do it in the Cup Series. So you see it happen in the O'Reilly Series. But I think he did it a little too extreme, obviously. And then obviously, Love still came home decently well, I think, and so did Raja. And then they just got to pit road. And yeah, I mean, Danny Stockman looked like he was ready to fight him for whatever reason. I mean, when your driver is like 20 years younger than you, and yet he's like, just let us talk us out, that's when you probably should just shut up and not say anything. I mean, sure, he wanted to make the point across that he was frustrated with Raja and whatnot, and I get that, but you make yourself look like a bigger dumbass, especially, after, that whole thing where they actually just stepped away from that entire conversation and just talked it out one another. It was great to see, honestly. If you're not going to fight, obviously, you just want to have a cool conversation. It seems like that was what was happening. It seemed like Raja was definitely taken in with whatever Jesse was saying to him, because Jesse Love obviously is the defending champion. He's more of the veteran of the series than Raja is, and they said it on the broadcast when it was going on. It's like Raja is the student of the game. I think he's going to learn from this very well. I do believe that, and yeah, hopefully, these guys, obviously don't have any more run-ins together, because obviously that keeps going on and on. Then I think Jesse Love is going to have to do something about it. But this is just a one-time thing, obviously, so far. And, I think it's good to see that these drivers, despite how young they are, were able to just talk it out and, give respect to each other, because, that's also what you want to see, in NASCAR, not just, I know it's cool to see the fights and all that, all the swinging punches and whatnot, but sometimes it is better just to see these drivers have respect for one another and talk it out.
Yeah, I think that drivers need to handle it with the drivers. If the teams want to go at it and just scuffle, let them go at it. I'm fine with the fighting, but teams go after teams. You're the guys that's working on the car. The other team's driver comes out and wrecks him. Well, guess what? I'm going to be in the shop, or I'm going to be wherever trying to work on this thing. Well, I'm going to take it out on the guy that's in my same position. Let the jack man go at it. I mean, that'd be a hell of a brawl. Super heavyweights. But I do like what Raja and Jesse Love done. They stepped away. They did have the conversation. And the crew chiefs do the same thing. Just, if you're the crew chief over this, you're the head coach, go and have that conversation or whatever you need to with the other crew chief, because he's the one that's managing the people on the pit road, and he's helping manage the driver. Can he control the actions of the driver? No. But don't go and just ruffle feathers with Raja or Jesse Love or anybody really. It's just stay in your lane. Do that. Stay in your lane. I'll leave it on that one.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Stay in your lane, whether it's the crew members or the driver, or some of the officials. They gotta. I mean, they're just always there. It's just really annoying. I mean, can we at least see something happen? But anyway, yeah, I think something I also want to take from this scuffle between the two drivers is Jesse Love really does drive people pretty aggressive, but as soon as someone drives him a little bit extra aggressive, kind of like he does, he can't take it. I don't know what's with RCR drivers driving other drivers aggressive, but as soon as someone else does it to them, they can't take it. They get offended. I mean, I'm a Jesse Love fan, but I'm sure that was what Raja was trying to get his point across, maybe. But But yeah, no, this whole situation kind of just makes you, smile because yeah, these young drivers are maturing. They're both thinking about the future ahead of them. They know that they're going to be racing each other the rest of the season. They're in two really fast cars, and they know they got to get better at it and try not to have these run-ins. Anyway, let's move on to news around the garage. Like always, we start off with a look at the point standings this time after 7 weeks. So let's take a look here. All righty. Mine is loading. All right. Still at the top, we have Tyler Reddick. In second, Ryan Blaney. In third, Denny Hamlin. In fourth, Chase Elliott. In fifth, William Byron. In sixth, Ty Gibbs. Seventh, Christopher Bell. In eighth, Brad Keselowski. Ninth, Kyle Larson. 10th, Chris Buescher. 11th, Bubba Wallace. 12th, Joey Logano. 13th, Ryan Preece. 14th, SVG. 15th, Carson Hocevar. 16th, Daniel Suarez. And the first driver out would be Michael McDowell. Thoughts on the points after Martinsville?
The first one I really want to point out is Chase Briscoe is 21st in points right now. Now, we talked about how terrible the start of the season was for Briscoe. Obviously, he was in the 30s, and we all knew he was going to have to claw and fight his way back through the field. He is now just 40 points outside the top 16 once again. So he did not have a good Martinsville race, but he still made up points and definitely closed that gap a lot more. So I've really been interested in seeing how he has done just climbing through the points. So that's always been one interesting thing I always liked about NASCAR is seeing guys that start out the season really bad or really terrible and just see them climb through the points. Ryan Blaney, after the first 4 races in 2021, was 37th in points and clawed his way back to be second in points at the end of the 2021 season. Tony Stewart was 43rd in points after the Daytona 500 in 2002, and of course he ended up winning the championship, a full season championship. That was before the chase happened. So I always just find it interesting to watch guys like that climb through the points. Another guy I want to point out is Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch is 24th in the points, and I thought Kyle was going to be around the 16th place. I personally didn't have Kyle in the chase, but I thought he'd be a 16th place driver, and so far he's not even showing that. He's showing 25th place driver. He's showing 30th place driver right now. I don't know what's happening. Eric Jones is ahead of him. I haven't heard Eric Jones's name since at all this season, except for Darlington. So we keep talking about it. There's a lot of changes need to be made with RCR, whether that's a driver, whether it's behind the scenes, but something needs to happen.
Yeah, since you mentioned it last, I guess I'll also mention it too. I was going to talk about RCR just real quick. The longest drought they've gone into the season without a top 10. Not a single one of their cars has gotten a top 10 so far this year. Not Kyle Busch, not Austin Dillon. And, that is shocking to see considering that, the one program that you'd expect RCR to be good at, Super Speedways, they really weren't. They never really were up front. And then the other tracks, they're just way off the pace. Kyle Busch is firing off in 35th place speed. He's battling guys like Cody Ware, and he's cussing everybody out on the radio. And then he's in the media sessions and he's just calling just seems so depressing, and it is depressing to see a guy like Kyle Busch's caliber. Sure, this is not prime Kyle Busch anymore. Obviously, I think that prime left him about 4 years ago, in my opinion. That's when he started to fall off a little bit. But still, you don't want to see a guy like this. That's why when you see a guy like Hamlin still winning races and he's in his 40s, it is appreciative because, he's not actually, falling off. But then you see other guys like Keselowski and Kyle Busch, do struggle at times. And, it's just the cycle of life as what a NASCAR driver and a fan goes through. But, I guess to start things off for me, other than that, was Ryan Blaney. Aiden admitted that this is probably the one track that you wanted to make up a lot of points on Reddick. if you can at all. And Reddick was basically around 15th place all day long. And Blaney did get, several stage points, but also that incident with Hamlin kind of cost him a few points there. Yeah, I think at the end he only made up like 13 points, so he's like, I think Reddick's ahead by like 82. Just crazy that Reddick is that far ahead of everybody else. That's wild. Hamlin solidly in third, obviously great points day, most points anyone made on Sunday. Chase Elliott in fourth there. I mean, it's great to win, don't get me wrong, but again, I admitted like a couple weeks back, I said if Elliott wants to continue to stay up here, and as we all pointed out, that you probably want to be in this like top 4, especially maybe top 6. You got to get more stage points and get more results and throughout their entire race and be up front more than what he has been doing, which what he has been doing is being around like 8th to 10th place in these stages, and that's where he typically finishes. So if he wants to stay solidly up here in the top, he's definitely going to need to be flashing more winning speed going forward. Still a great strategy call by Adam Gustafson, though. So tip of the hat to him. You got Byron in 5th, obviously expected. Ty Gibbs maintaining the hot stretch that he's on. 5 straight top 10s finishes in a row. 5 straight like top 6 finishes in a row, actually. Seems like he's figured some things out with his team. It's finally time. It seems like for Ty Gibbs, because this is his like what 4th year in Cup, 5th year in Cup, something like that. It's time for him to obviously be producing results, and he has been doing that. And then just real quick, there's like a 3-way tie, 4-way tie for 8th place. That's crazy between Kozlowski, Larson, Busher, and Wallace. Again, Bubba, real big hit in the points. Can't afford to do that. Again, coming in the weekend, you were 3rd. After that accident, again, you cost yourself about 20 extra points. You would have been, even if you had a bad result, you would have been right around Ty Gibbs' 6th place. So that is big of a difference between 6th to 11th right now. Joey Logano, much needed rebound from what was a disaster Darlington race where he came home in 33rd, 3 laps down, was completely off from his teammates. This weekend, I mean, Blaney's was still the best, still the best Penske car, but Logano at least was in the top 10 a lot all day long, and he ended up coming home in 3rd place. So he made up 4 positions in the standings. That's big for him. SVG, he came home in 11th. And typically you saw last year he was struggling on these type of tracks, especially. Like he was struggling on some of the ovals, but especially on these short tracks. He was spinning out on his own a lot. But at Martinsville, he was keeping it clean mostly all day long. I think he had a little hiccup there. I don't remember what, but then he still ended up came home and finishing 11th. Just doing what he needs to do. He needs to be in the top 16 or at least around the top 16 when they get to those road courses, because then you would expect for him to obviously dominate and win the stages and potentially win the race to get max points. Let's see. Austin Cindric +3. Again, another good result for him. Again, the guy that desperately needs to get good finishes if he's going to have good points days. Chase Briscoe, 21st. I mean, yeah, we expect him to keep on climbing, but I'm just going to point out that it seems like this 19 team, for whatever reason, just cannot run a clean race. Like, they stay in the top 10 or top 5, and then they'll have a mechanical failure or a tire failure that put them behind the 8 ball, potentially behind in the wall in the garage, or he'll have like a speeding penalty or something like that where he's losing track position. He just can't be doing that. And, again, it just makes it harder on yourself, to pick up spots in the standings and also be in position for potential, obviously, top 5 finishes and potential wins, which is, I feel like, something that, we all expect Chase Briscoe to have. Maybe last year was an outlier in terms of number of wins because he had like 3 wins on the year, obviously. But, he has talent, and JGR is a great team. So the fact that he still is only in 21st, I think, is a little disappointing considering that we saw the highs from him last year. And other than really that, I guess maybe I'll just pick this guy out because he gained 7 spots and had a great day. Josh Berry. Obviously, with Wood Brothers being a Penske affiliated team, it was a great day for Penske as a total in total because, again, Blaney came home in 6th, Logano was 3rd, Cindric was like 8th, and Barry was 10th. So all around, it was a nice day for the Fords, at least for, Penske. RFK was still up there in the top 15. But for Barry, he was buried again way back in 32nd in points before the weekend. This is one of the tracks that you expect him to run well at, is these short tracks. This is his bread and butter, especially when he was driving, late models. You expect him to do well. When you have opportunities like that, you got to strike when the lightning's hot. And, for that team to come home with a solid 10th place finish was good. You just got to keep yourself in the battle, and hopefully you can string together more good finishes.
All right, I'm going to run through my shocker list here. I'm really impressed with Gibbs this year. Sitting here in 6th place, I didn't expect to see this out of him going into this season. I did pick him to win a race, and I do still feel that way. But him being up there in 3rd top Toyota, 2nd for Gibbs, I mean, he's only 10 points in front of Bell. I get that. But what he's been able to do this season thus far, and Toyota as an organization as a whole, is really shocking to me. And then you scroll down here, and Brad Kay being the number 2 Ford. That one's a little bit of a shocker. And I'm glad to see him later in his career being able to put this consistency, and he is in that 4-way tie for 8th. So, I mean, he does have a pretty good track record at Bristol, and I think that he may be able to break out of that and maybe run good at Bristol. We'll have to see. And then you go on down, Shane Van Gisbergen. I think that the NASCAR Cup Series going forward realizes they're about a year away from being in deep trouble. He is going to be a contender. He's actually been able to run better on the ovals, put some things together this year. Has he been outstanding on the ovals? Not necessarily, but they're showing speed, and his qualifying efforts has paid off. And going on down the list, Zachary, you said that Josh Berry, he picked up 7 spots this week. That one's kind of a shocker for me also. I felt like we would see him grow a little bit more this season than what we have, sitting in 25th position. And I was expecting the Ford group to come on early and us see Barry kind of be in that range of Spire Motorsports, and it's just not happened. And that one to me is a little bit shocking. I felt like after his first year and picking up that win in his rookie year, we would see him be more in that 14 to 17 range, and it just isn't happening. And then you've got Noah Gragson down here. He's had some ups and downs. I don't know what you do with Noah. Noah had a great Xfinity Series term, and he's in the Cup Series now, and it's just not paying off. I mean, Noah's been, if you was coming into the sport and you seen Noah Gragson in the 4-car, you would think that he's always been awful. Why is he driving? But we got to reflect back at what he done in the Xfinity Series, and it's just not paying off for him. And I truly, truly hate that. Maybe these guys in the back can kind of turn it around, but I think they've dug themselves in way too big of a hole.
Yeah, for me, the main one is just Bubba Wallace. Just your dumb mistake that you made on Sunday, from 3rd in points, you're now in 11th, tied for 8th. You gained 1 point on the weekend. You entered with 205 points. You exited with 206. You should be sitting around 5th or 6th place in points if you would have just stuck it out and taken that 15th to 17th place finish and just survived the weekend, because that would have been 20 spots better than what you finished at Darlington the week prior. Instead, you have 34th place finish, a 34th place finish, and a 36th place finish. It's not a recipe for success, especially if you want to actually contend this year. It's just not going to work out. Another one I'm going to look at here, you guys brought up SVG. That's a good one to bring up. But Joey Logano. Last week we were talking Are we worried about Joe Logano? He was sitting 16th, the last car in. He ran top 5 all day long and is now in 12th. Now he's not going to be. I'm sure he's not happy about where they're currently at, but the short flat ovals is where Penske's really good at, and it's where Joey Logano has been very good at these last couple of years of his career. So I feel like he's going to be pretty good at Bristol. Not a flat oval, but it's a short track. He's likely to be a top 10 driver there. I'm sure when we go to Richmond in a little while, he'll also be good there as well. But that's really what I'm looking at. And then just overall, just an outward perspective on the points here, just how close the battle for that last spot is. Currently, Daniel Suarez is at 167 points, 9 points back is Michael McDowell, his teammate. So just seeing the battles that we're going to have going into the year as the year goes on, that 16th, the last couple of drivers in, like, that is going to be a really good battle. And I'm just so glad we have this points format in, because that battle of drivers, obviously they all race around each other because they're sitting in these point spots, but it's going to be crazy to watch. I mean, Spire, they're all three right there on the bubble getting in. Does Cindric make his way in? How far does Chase Briscoe get in? Does Ross Chastain get back up there? Who's going to fall out? There's a couple of drivers that I just mentioned that are out. They're looking in. Who's going to fall out? Does Shane Van Gisbergen keep it up? Does he keep up the run that he's been doing on the ovals? Sure, Las Vegas was a track he'd want to forget, but everywhere else he's been pretty solid at, if not pretty good at. I'm just really looking forward to the points battle, especially here in the back half of the points and what goes on from there. Sure, might not be racing for a championship, but it's still going to be pretty cool to watch that battle in the back of the pack. Moving on, let's get to the news here. NASCAR reinstates Daniel Dye. After 1 week of being suspended and indefinitely suspended from NASCAR, he is back. But Daniel Dye then steps away from his ride at the Colleague Trucks. With that, Colleague hired Corey LaJoie to run the remaining full-time schedule for the 10 truck for Colleague. Guys, thoughts on this one?
That Corey LaJoie is just thrilled that he is going to be racing on Saturdays with no one in the stands. All right. Anyways, great that Daniel Dye is reinstated. I do hope that it was for the better. I hope he did learn his lesson. And hopefully this does not become another thing in the future. I'm going to side with Colleague actually on this one. I completely understand why they made the switch. I mean, I didn't blame Chip Ganassi when they had to let go of Larson. To be fair, that was going to happen at the end of the year anyways, but I hope Daniel Dye does land on his feet. I am a supporter of second chances no matter what. I shouldn't say no matter what. There are some things you can do that make me say, nah, never mind. Anyways, I take back, I redact that last statement. But in Daniel Dye's situation, I believe he should have a second chance. Now, for the other side, I think this is actually a good move for Colleague. I know we harp and hated on Corey LaJoie for many, many reasons. A lot of them were valid. A lot of valid reasons. But, I mean, he's still a Cup driver. He still was a Cup driver. He's has the experience. He's been in NASCAR for a while. His dad was an Xfinity regular and one of the best to do it. So I think it's a good move for Colleague, actually.
I didn't speak on this topic when we initially had it, just because I didn't know all the facts. But with sensitivity training that NASCAR are mandatory, makes these drivers that do get in trouble with these things, go through. That typically is short, and it was this for this time as well. And I hope that Daniel Dye again has learned his lesson about you are a presence, no matter how small or how big you are in the NASCAR community, in the NASCAR world, NASCAR circuit, whatever you're doing, whatever you say can hurt you tremendously. And I think him getting obviously kicked out essentially of his ride, because I feel like this was not his call. I feel like this was mostly the team's call, just because they just didn't want him back because they are worried about the PR that he might bring if they actually brought him back on. But I hope he has learned his lesson. I think he will get another shot. I just don't know where. Maybe it's in ARCA, just somewhere to where he just can still drive, because I don't think he is still a young driver. He still has some potential. I don't know what that it looks like, but he still at least has some. The problem is that I don't think he has a whole lot of funding behind him either, so that's also a big issue. But either way, I am glad to see that he is still reinstated by NASCAR. And as for Corey LaJoie getting the 10, I mean, honestly, for him, obviously, he's probably thrilled because he gets to race again. It's not in the Cup Series level. But, every time you hear Corey LaJoie talk, other than whenever he's doing his, podcast or he's, doing the prime coverage for the Cup Series, he typically is just screaming that he wants someone to give him an opportunity to drive no matter what. So he gets to drive, like 21 races in trucks this year, because there's like 25 races on the schedule. They've been through like 4 already. It's either 21 or 22. Either way, I guess for that perspective, obviously it's great for him. But honestly, for Colleague and for Ram, I was hoping that they would have maybe turned that 10 truck into maybe another like truck that's offered multiple drivers, just to see you can get different perspectives that way. I mean, sure, LaJoie is a veteran and he might understand, obviously he's driven a couple truck races in the last year or so. So maybe he understands the trucks, and that's why you value that. But honestly, I would have valued, obviously, different perspectives. You can get some different drivers a look, whether that's, young guys in ARCA or just veterans that just want to go down in trucks and just race. I would have preferred that option, honestly, over just having Corey LaJoie drive it. But I think, they don't want to hassle with all that, considering they already have one truck that's like that. So maybe they didn't want to have 2 trucks that are like that. But, for Ram and Colleague, obviously, get a veteran like Corey LaJoie in there. I did just see on Twitter, because I haven't been on Twitter all day long, but I just saw that he has switched his points from like the Cup Series side for when he was running at Daytona to now the trucks. So now he can be eligible for the playoffs, the chase in that series. So I guess we'll wait and see how it goes. So I wish Corey LaJoie all the best.
I'm kind of surprised that NASCAR reinstated Daniel Dye as quick as they did. Just after what we've seen with especially Larson, that's the one that primarily comes to mind. And he was out the remainder of that season. So it kind of shocks me that they reinstated him as quick as they did, but maybe they looked at the information. I don't know. And as far as Corey LaJoie goes, this is put up or shut up time. You have the remainder of the season. If you want to ride, you better go out and do it, or at least be the most competitive Dodge truck that's out there. If you can go out and be the number 1 Dodge truck, okay, that's fair. It's their first year. But you're going to have to be able to prove yourself, because you've run that damn mouth this whole time. So therefore, show us what you got. I mean, you are the wily veteran here. Show us what you got.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what he could do with Ram. I mean, Ram hasn't been off to the hot start we all thought they would be at this point of the season. I thought, Butterbean Queen would have had a winner a few at this point. I thought, some other drivers would do a lot better. Obviously, no one expected what happened to Daniel Dye happen, but this now gives Corey LaJoie an opportunity to race the full season. Obviously, a couple years ago, he joked about he doesn't want to race in the trucks because there's only 12 fans that watch it. That's kind of what Aiden was saying earlier. And, now he gets the opportunity to run full time for the season, get points, and see what he could do. And I'll be interested to see what he could do for them. And hopefully, he can run well and possibly get his first NASCAR win that has eluded him his whole career. All right, next up, let's talk about AM Racing, the Ford team for O'Reilly Auto Parts withdraws from the Rockingham race. Questions are swirling around if this is them closing up shop or just not going to be able to race for Rockingham because of the damage done to their car at Martinsville. Guys, thoughts on this one?
Obviously the biggest story from this all, and what has carried over from the offseason, literally like a week from the start of the O'Reilly season to now, was that Nick Sanchez didn't deserve to lose his ride. He won at Atlanta and put that car in the playoffs, and he was running really well. He didn't just win at Atlanta. He was actually running top 10 basically on a consistent basis week to week. The only unfortunate problem for this was that the business caught up to him, and they had to kick him out for Dr. Strapoli or whatever that guy's name is. I don't remember his name exactly, but it's like some doctor, okay? And that doctor and that driver for that car is running consistently worse. I mean, sure, that guy is green in the series. I get that. I understand that. But, it just makes you look even worse in that Nick Sanchez, I feel like he's been running a little better than that guy, and he's in worse equipment, and now he's not even driving now because apparently they don't have the money, I guess, to fund it or whatnot. And we already knew that AM Racing was on the last leg of their, operation, in my opinion. I figured that this was going to be, if they weren't going to last the entire year, they were going to go out like halfway through. And for Nick Sanchez, again, because he's the one guy that's like hurt by all this, it truly does suck. He was a Truck Series winner, like a 2-time Truck Series winner, 3-time Truck Series winner. Obviously, again, I mentioned earlier how he won that O'Reilly Series race at Atlanta last year, and he's a good driver. And I just, I hope he can find a way to market himself better to some of these sponsors that are out there, and hope some of these sponsors are willing to give him a shot, because I feel like you will get a decent amount of TV time if you give him a ride in one of these series, whether it's trucks, whether it's O'Reilly, because he does tend to run well. And again, he is a deserving driver with a lot of talent, and he just deserves to be driving on Saturdays, Fridays or Saturdays, and to just make a name for himself. And he already has so far, and hopefully it can continue to do so. But obviously, unfortunate setback, the AM Racing is folding up.
Yeah, I mean, I hate this for Sanchez. I think that he could easily go back down to the Truck Series and find a ride. I don't think that would be a problem. But the whole AM Racing, I agree with you, Zachary. I think it's about the time that they're going to close up shop. I mean, the cards have been out there. They've had some pretty decent runs, but nothing's really unfolded the way that they probably hoped. And this kind of falls into one of the questions in the chat is, what will Ford do, possibly losing one of their two cars in the O'Reilly series? And you would think that Ford would kind of put the funding out there to be able to build that and have a little bit more competition in the Xfinity or O'Reilly series. And for me, I think they need to. I think this is becoming a little bit of a Ford issue in the O'Reilly series, because they are down to 2 cars and possibly 1 very, very soon. And it's not looking good coming through the pipeline. You kind of see that in the Cup Series. And Ford right now is the number 3 manufacturer, and outside of Blaney. And I think that's something that they need to get back into. And we have also talked about that with Penske and stuff. So I don't think it's just the AM Racing thing. I think it's a manufacturing thing, and kind of hope to see them pick it up a little bit.
Yeah, no, it'll be really interesting to see what they do now with what Ford does now if AM Racing is going to be gone. First off, it does suck for Nick Sanchez. He definitely does not deserve the situation he's in. He should be in with a team and competing for wins. He should be on the top team. He really should. He's got the talent for it. He just does not have the money backing him for it, and that's kind of what sucks. That's kind of why he got out of the ride at Big Machine Racing over there with the 48. and why he had to settle for this ride. But he only found out like a month before the season, had to scramble and put things together with AM Racing, and they only found out a week after Nick Sanchez found out that they would be able to race. So he only had 2 weeks to prepare really for Daytona, and they were doing a pretty good job for everything that led up to the situation. And now Ford going to lose another team, only have one car out there, Hettinger Racing, and they're not even full time. It'll be interesting to see what Ford does. Like you said, Ford is definitely the third manufacturer at this point. And it's to me, it just seems like they just don't try. I don't know why they don't try with the development side with the lower series, and they only pay attention to the Cup. I get it. Cup is your money making series, but if you want to consistently have talented drivers in your rides, you got to build it up through the lower ranks and the lower series. And
I'm gonna play devil's advocate here for Ford. Actually, I think Ford's in a weird situation where there's not a lot of Ford Cup teams. Honestly, I feel like they're kind of in a spot like they don't really have a lot of open rides in the possibility. You look at Ryan Blaney. Blaney's going to be at Penske for a while. Joey Logano, I know he's old. He hasn't really shown signs of slowing down. You got Chris Buescher. Chris Buescher's still hanging on. Cindric, they seem to plan for Cindric to stay there. Now, if that does happen, I don't know. But if they do replace him, I can see them going into free agency instead. Wood Brothers is okay with Josh Berry right now. RFK is cool with Chris Buescher and Ryan Preece. Front row is perfectly fine with Zane Smith and Todd Gilliland right now. Now, the only question mark right now is kind of Noah Gragson, what they're going to do with him. But they seem to want to keep him around. So I would actually argue a good reason for why they're not doing a lot in the lower series could be because they just don't really have that many open spots in the top series.
I would also add in is that I don't want to call I don't want to call Ford lazy, and I especially don't want to call Roger Penske lazy either, because again, he's made a career out of just dominating motorsports, whether it's NASCAR, whether it's IndyCar, everything he steps in, he wants to win and be great at, and he puts on obviously, a great product. He's owned several tracks over the years. Michigan, he owns the Indy 500, Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I would say for Ford, you are right that there is very little seats available, if any at all, in the Cup level. But, I thought part of the reason why Penske stepped out of the Xfinity Series, now it's O'Reilly Series, but the Xfinity Series side, and RFK hasn't driven an Xfinity program since the mid-2010s. I just see a lack of motivation to do so, really. And when Brad Keselowski came over to RFK Racing, someone mentioned to him about what he thought about the O'Reilly Series and whether or not that Roush was going to get back into it. He said, yeah. So I'm just waiting to see if they would do that, get back into it, because I think it'd be great to see, RFK get back into the O'Reilly Series, and obviously Penske to bring back the 22, because, it's not like fans or nobody watches this series. They get a consistent 1 million, it seems like, every single week. I mean, sure, sponsorship is always going to be a big problem, a big, talking point, because it always is, especially with rising costs the way they are nowadays. But this isn't like the Truck Series where you're barely getting 800,000. You do get a consistent 1 million viewership every week, and I think it would just be great to see more, obviously, teams challenge the JRMs of the world and potentially even the Joe Gibbses of the world, because Joe Gibbs, I feel like, has taken a step down in terms of competitiveness because of the quality of their drivers in that series. Okay, in that series, not the Cup Series, the O'Reilly Series. You basically just see JRM, and then, on the super speedways, it's Austin Hill galore. So I think it'd just be great to see a teams like Penske or RFK to step back into the O'Reilly Series, because I'm always all for more teams being, and no matter what, competing against one another for trophies.
Yeah, good question for that one. I mean, brings up a great point when we're bringing up AM Racing on whether or not Ford, what they do in the Xfinity O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. But moving on, let's get to the award ceremony. Starting up first, we have the top shelf. I'll go first. I'm going to give mine to Ty Gibbs. He's consistently running well. What is this, his fifth top six finish or something like that in a row? He's just on it. Who would have thought? There's someone, I mean, you guys might know, there's someone on TikTok that always says, Ty Gibbs will never win a race. He just keeps doing that whole like bit, and he's racing very well. He might actually finally get that win. So yeah, that's gonna be my top shelf, consistently running up front, and we're going to arguably his best track in 2 weeks at Bristol.
For mine, I'm gonna give it to Penske. They had a phenomenal day, and we clowned them on this podcast the week before. We clowned them. All right, we did the top 10 race teams. Everyone's answers were kind of the same. I put them in at 5. Everyone else seemed to put them not even on the list. We all said you got to do a little bit more than have Ryan Blaney carry the team. Blaney didn't really need to carry the team. Joey Logano finished 3rd. Austin Cindric ended up 8th, but Cindric was running top 5. Ryan Blaney, like we mentioned earlier in the show, probably had the second best race car, which he's good here. And even after he hit the wall, he still finished 6th. I'm giving this to Penske as a whole. And I didn't even realize this till I was looking at it right now. Josh Berry got 10th. Like, it was just a good all-around day for Penske.
Yeah, good all-around day for Penske, but it was even better day for this guy, Alan Gustafson. Dude gets a lot of criticism week in, week out, and this is a job that goes from basically late January all the way to the first week of November. So that means he deals with 40 weeks of bullcrap from Chase Elliott fans that are calling for his job, for him to get fired. And the only reason why Chase Elliott came out with victory this week was because of Alan Gustafson. So he gave a big middle finger to all those Chase sexuals and even the Jeff Gordon fans that, carried over to Chase Elliott fans. They hated him back then too. But, he's been around for a good while. He does have a resume that is potentially Hall of Fame worthy. I feel like he needs another Cup championship, potentially. Okay. I'm not opening that Pandora box. But I'm just saying he gets like a 2-week break basically because we're not racing this weekend to say, I'm still a good crew chief. I'm still going to be around. You're going to have to deal with it. And, he still does produce good results. So, Alan Gustafson, round of applause to you, my man.
So we got the Chase Sexuals. We've got Hung Money. We have the Toasters and the Blaney fans. We have whatever the Bushes fans are. We're going with son of a gun. Michael, say his name.
Gustafson.
His gonads. Gustafson's gonads is where I'm going with this. Is making the call to win the race. He's the ultimate winner. Zachary said it. I tried to make a joke out of it and can't say the damn name. That is my kryptonite. Yes, Gustafson's gonads.
That was a great call from him. Great calls from all you guys on the top shelves of the week. Now let's get into the hangovers. The drivers were the people who were having not so great of a week. You guys already know mine. I already alluded to it. It's Bubba Wallace and whatever he thought that he was doing there in turns 3 and 4. Come on, man. That's my hangover of the week, guys. Who you guys have? There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them outside of NASCAR too. There's plenty to choose from.
I'm gonna keep it on the track with this one though. Give me 23-11. As a whole, obviously, we know the Bubba situation with Carson Hocevar. The thing that slid under the radar as well. Riley Herbst also finished 35th. Just one position better than Bubba. I don't even remember what happened to him. I feel like every week we forget Riley Herbst exists. I watched the entire race. I remember where I was, what I was doing, and I genuinely cannot tell you what happened to Riley Herbst. I don't even know if he drove the Monster Energy car. I don't even know if he drove the Sunny D car. I don't even know what car he drove. I don't know what happened to him. The Bubba situation, and then of course you got Tyler Reddick, the premier 2311 team who's right now first in points, finishing 15th. Really was a non-factor the entire race. He qualified well, so he was up in the top 10, but as soon as he fell out of the top 10, he just instantly disappeared. A little bit expected though. I mean, not Bubba. This is not one of Tyler Reddick's better tracks. He's even said that this is one of his worst tracks. But yeah, just kind of a rough day for 2311 as a whole. Oh yeah, and then the owner lost the race after dominating. So yeah, that didn't do much better either.
Yeah, it was not a good day for them. I would also say it wasn't a good day for short track enthusiasts. If you are one of those, it wasn't too long ago that we were all pushing for more short tracks because the Gen 6 was just absolutely atrocious on 1.5 miles. Now we get the next gen car, and it was great for like the first 2 years on 1.5 miles. It's kind of taken a little dip, I feel like, in terms of race quality, but the short tracks have just sucked from the very beginning. And this is some of the, I remember when I was growing up, again, this was some of the best races that I could remember watching. I remember 2011 Martinsville very vividly, how Brian Vickers basically wrecked half the field because he just kept on overdriving turn 3. And then Tony Stewart ended up around the outside, even going past Jimmy Johnson to win his 4th of 5 races of that playoffs. And then I remember obviously Dale Jr., my favorite driver, winning at 2014. It was just so many great electric moments at these short tracks. And this is the oldest short track that NASCAR has. It's been run since the very beginning in 1949. But this race was just absolutely brutal to watch, especially even the stage cautions. Like we ran 19 laps under caution before they set the field green again. That can't happen. That's stupid. But I spent 3.5 hours just watching this race. I could have spent 2.5 hours doing something else and then just tuned in for like the last 100 laps, and that's when something actually happened. You just got to do something about it. And, obviously, again, that's going to have to rely on, the guys that are in charge actually doing something, being more active than reactive. It was a good call, don't get me wrong, to up the horsepower from 670 to 750, but obviously that isn't going to do everything. I think that proved it this past weekend. And, I just hope for better days in the future for, short tracks because, this is supposed to be some of the best racing you're supposed to see in the Cup Series, especially.
Yeah, you guys took the big ones. I'm going to throw mine in there as crew chief jumping into Raja and Jesse Love's argument, just showing he's hind end. Just like I said earlier, leave it to the drivers. If the drivers want to handle it themselves, let them do that. But don't go in all hot-headed and crazy. Take it to the crew chief.
Yeah, some good picks, guys. The ones I was alluding to that were not NASCAR related. The IndyCar, you had I forgot his name, Scott McLaughlin, going through the wall backwards, crazy accident. Not a good day for him. And then I don't know the series or what, but they were like running these really old time cars, and the driver went on the outside of someone, lost it, spun around, hit the wall, and flew out of the like old time IndyCar looking thing. It was weird. It was crazy. It was wild. They immediately cut away. They're like, "Oh boy, nope, we're gonna cut away." DBC posted it. Their Twitter, their X. Just watch it. It is wow. What an idiot. But anyway, those are our awards of the week. Now let's move on to our picks and predictions. Bunny, you have a prediction or a picks from last week?
Yes, I do. Finishing in 4th with Todd Gilliland is Rizzo. In 3rd, you have Aiden with Chase Briscoe. 2nd was Zachary with Ryan Priest, and I brought home the win with Ryan Blaney.
Yeah, everyone did so good. Yeah. Yeah, Toddy G, man, he did not work out for me. So this week, well, in 2 weeks at Bristol, we're gonna pick now just in case, but I will go with I'm gonna swing big here. I'm gonna go Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin's got arguably the best average finish here. That's what I'm gonna go with. They're hot right now. He needs a win. Well, he doesn't need a win, but he's gonna be on it. He deserved to win last week. Well, he's gonna come back better for this.
All right. Well, I picked a Joe Gibbs driver last week. Didn't work out for me. Wasn't really a factor the entire race. But this time around, I'm more confident. He's been running super well. Give me Ty Gibbs.
Yeah. Let's see. I've picked 2 Joe Gibbs racing drivers already. I really don't want to pick the rest of their crew, especially since I feel like Ty Gibbs is probably the best one left. No offense to Chase Briscoe. I just can't trust that 19 car. So I'm gonna switch things up. I haven't picked a team from this organization. That's gonna be Hendrick Motorsports. That's right. I'm gonna swing a little bit big on this one. This guy has been really good here. Obviously, the last couple years, especially, he's dominated a lot. Give me Kyle Larson.
Well, Aiden, you took my pick that I had marked down here for that one. So I'm going to have to go back to the drawing board a little bit and give me, you all went big here with some big hitters. I'm going to take a risk on this one. Give me Michael McDowell. No, scratch that. I'm going to save him for later. Give me Brad Kay.
Better pick than your first one. I will say that. Yeah, we swung pretty big there. We were swinging for the fences. Really was not. I was really hoping no one would have went Kyle Larson there. Contend for the win. I was going to. Yeah, I mean it's Ty Gibbs. He's gonna get out top 5, but I don't know about a win. But yeah, I was between Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin, and I'm like, Hendrick kind of lucked into this win. I don't know if they could do it again, but we'll see. Guys, predictions here. What do you think about this Bristol race? Is it going to be the crazy tire wear that we saw just a few years ago? I mean, that same tire wear is very weather dependent. Are we going to get the weather that's going to be great, a good mix for these tires? Are we going to get that? Or are we going to get what we got last year where it was tire wear, but the first 40 so laps you could race on it, and then it kind of just fell off like you just fell off a hole pretty much. So guys, what's your thoughts here? I don't know what to really expect. I don't know if we're gonna get the crazy tie wear or not. But I'm gonna be honest. I don't know if I'm not expecting a great race. We kind of been harping on it a little bit in this episode, talking just how bad this car is at the short tracks. But yeah, guys, thoughts on this one?
I mean, it's hard to tell, honestly, with this tire compound. Also, you mentioned the weather plays a factor. We're in an off week, so a lot can happen in that short time span. We'll have to see. I'm a little hesitant because I don't know. I feel like NASCAR messed it up somehow. Like they not NASCAR. NASCAR doesn't really have a Goodyear. I feel like Goodyear somehow messed it up. That's just my fear with Goodyear doing anything. They said they brought a better tire to Martinsville. They don't really change much. So I'm definitely less enthusiastic. Even though I like Bristol, I still love Bristol. I think it's a great track. And when Bristol's at its peak, it can be the best track on the circuit, in my opinion. Peak Bristol is the best, in my opinion. But we haven't seen peak Bristol in a hot minute, so I don't know. My expectations are a little low for this round one.
Yeah, same. It's just that this race weekend in general, You're talking about peak Bristol. Peak Bristol to me is under the lights. The night race at Bristol has always been better than the one that's during the day. Even if both races end up being duds because of this car and because of the way the track type is, with the track temperature being so dependent with the tires and whatnot, whether or not it's going to actually, wear. Because typically when it's not wearing, it's just like an all-out freight train around. And then you see some battles maybe further in the back, but that's just because they're all, like, again, bunched up together. So I'm not expecting a whole lot from this one. It's unfortunate, again, because, my hangover was short track racing. Unfortunately, we have 2 short tracks in a row in between this break. So it's something that I've always kind of dreaded, especially even before the next gen car, was that we had 2 Bristol dates, is because Bristol's never been my favorite track. Maybe it's because I just haven't been. Maybe I need to go. Maybe it's something it's better in person. It probably is, especially the night race. But again, I'm always a bigger fan of tracks only having like one. And if we were to keep only one Bristol date, it would be the night race, which happens obviously later in the season. I think that's just perfect. And especially since attendance at this track has also kind of been very poorly in the springtime. So my expectations are to be pretty low.
Yeah, I live in East Tennessee. I don't know what to expect from this. I will be attending Bristol not this weekend, but the following weekend. And right now, for the week leading up to the race, it is low to mid 60s. I believe that they forecasted out upper 60s for the race. No rain. That is one thing Bristol has not seen in years, is no precipitation shown for the week of the race. That's just been every year. You always see the flooding, stuff like that, and they're not calling for it. So I think that does play a big factor into the race, especially with the trucks hitting the racetrack on Friday night. One of the other things that's kind of sitting out there for me is, with the weather, is that mid to upper 60s range. What are we going to see? Because if we think about it, when it was chaotic, the temperatures was pretty low. Then you come back and it's hot in the fall, totally different race. So I don't know what to expect. Zachary, I will say, if you do go, it's got to be the night race. And the attendance has been poor. And Bristol has changed absolutely nothing in the last 10 to 12 years. So, yeah, I think that's probably part of the problem, is that they're not doing anything to draw in fans. It is a fun time, but when you've been since 1995 and everything's kind of primarily the same, or that it is drifted from the peak.
If you didn't know, he's very old.
Yes. Yeah. But I mean, they've got to do something. And trust me, I've beat the bush. They send out a survey every year to us, and I fill it out with my full heart, and nothing's got done. But what do I expect? I expect it to be this kind of the race that we've seen for the last little bit. I think the tires will fall off and then they'll peak or plateau, and everybody's going to be running the same. I hope that it's not. I hope that we see what we did from a few years ago, where you run about 15, 20 laps, the tires shred, and you're hanging on for dear life.
Yeah, I'm hoping for a good race. I just don't know if we're going to get it, sadly. And it sucks because the short tracks really need the good races, especially tracks like Bristol and Martinsville that we just went to. But yeah, looking forward to what might, the possibility of a solid race, but preparing for the worst. So, do we have any questions from the viewers today?
Yes, we have one. We answered the one with the AM racing, but another one. This is a 2-part question. What win this year would be considered the biggest? From the 77, the 54, the 8, or 6? which win would you prefer to see the most?
It's a good question. I guess I'll go first. I think out of all those, the biggest win would probably be Kyle Busch, just because RCR is just at a disadvantage right now. They're just so slow, and I just doubt it would happen. So it would be a big win because I mean, Kyle Busch is getting more disgruntled by the minute being at RCR. If you just watch his post race interviews that get posted on X, he's going back to those one word responses when he was in his prime at in the 18 at JGR. There was some interview he had where he's like, I'm here so I don't get fined. Yep. You guys know Kyle Busch when he was in his prime. He's doing that whole shtick all over again, but at RCR, and he's all mad because he's running 25th, and rightfully so. He's a guy who I don't just think deserves to be running 25th. He should be up there in the top 10 fighting for wins, but I think he'd be the biggest win, and who I'd want to see win would be Kyle Busch. I mean, it's been so long. I kind of would want to see him win, but I want to see all these guys win. I really do. Preferably my guy first, but yeah, but I honestly would want to see any of these guys win. Maybe not so much Ty Gibbs, but if I had to pick one, not to. No offense, Ty Gibbs, but I mean Brad Keselowski. He always thanks the fans, always celebrates with the American flag. Awesome seeing him go out and celebrate a win. He's a good guy. Carson Hocevar, he's going to do something crazy if he wins, and it's going to be awesome for the sport. Young guy winning, Spire winning, an up-and-coming team. I mean, sure, yeah, Ty Gibbs would be cool to see, him winning. Grandson to Joe Gibbs, all would be big wins. But for me, Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski, and Carson Hocevar, and Ty Gibbs in that order.
I think the biggest would be Carson Hocevar, actually. I think the sport will explode. If Hocevar wins, the fan reaction, what Hocevar does, just everything about it. The fact that Spire won a race without having to be in the front at Daytona after everyone gets taken out. That Hocevar's first win, and of course, like he is very big into like interacting with the fans. He has live streams, so I expect something big, something Hocevar will do, and like because of that, I think social media will blow up if Hocevar wins a race. For a guy that I want to see win, Brad. I want to see Brad win the most. To me, Brad has, like Rizzo said, he appreciates the fans. He always thanks the fans. Love him celebrating with the American flag, and also he's just a calm, chill dude. Like he's not the same Brad Keselowski we saw wreck everyone in 2014. He's a veteran. He's old. He's getting up there in age. There's questions on whether or not he should retire. We talked about how Kyle Busch should probably leave RCR. There are talks of Brad Keselowski just retiring, but I'd love to see him get one more win in the 6 car for NASCAR. I also think the 6 car winning in NASCAR is a good thing in general, just because of its history and prestige. So I want to see Brad Keselowski win.
The biggest for me would probably be it probably would be Kyle Busch, considering I feel like that would ultimately be his final win, because I think he would go on another long stretch where he might not win, and then he just leave the Cup Series at that point. And I feel like he'd also be aware of the fact that that could be his final win, because back when he won at Gateway, which was his last win up to this point, he was celebrating and acting normal and all that, because I think he thought that he'd probably end up winning another race or two since, but that hasn't happened. And I think he'll be more grateful if he ended up going back to victory lane. I feel like he actually might end up crying a little bit, honestly. So I think that'd be the biggest. But the first guy I want to see out of this list to probably win would be Carson Hocevar. He turns heads. He's a big personality. Who knows? Maybe he'll try and actually get Sabrina Carpenter to be his girlfriend, considering that he seems like he has a bit with her for whatever reason, because he's always posting about her on the social media. So we'll see. You are right. He is the biggest. I feel like he is the one driver that actually interacts with the fans quite a bit, and he does not give two F's about what anyone else thinks, other than what his own team thinks about him, and they think about him obviously tremendously well, considering that he just signed a 5-year extension with Spire Motorsports. So I'd probably want to see Carson Hocevar win first, but obviously the biggest I feel like would be Kyle Busch.
Yeah, the most shocking would be Kyle Busch. I do believe that. I will agree with you there. Second, the one that I want to see is Brad K. I am going here with the older people. I will say that. Also, Zachary, I just had to pull up who Sabrina Carpenter was because I did not know who Sabrina Carpenter was. So I'm going to stay on that vibe.
If you didn't know, he's old.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle, just with everything that's going on with RCR there, either one of them, him or Austin Dillon winning, would be a big shocker. And Brad K, he's kind of in that, again, the veteran guy. He's not the guy that everybody kind of grew up hating. He's becoming more of a legendary position, and he's become more likable. He's settled down. He's kind of chilled for the most part, and I think he's more and more a likable guy. So for me, yeah, give me Brad K and give me Kyle Busch.
That was a great question. So, Zachary, do you have a topic for us at driver again?
Yeah, so we did this last week, and I really enjoyed it. Unfortunately, I don't have too many questions. I won't give away who the driver is right away like I did last time. I do have at least a couple of questions. I feel like Michael might know this guy, considering, again, he's older than all of us. So to start out, I'll just say, again, similar to what these other guys do on the NASCAR Weekly podcast with the Iceberg and Eric and all them guys, I'm gonna state this driver, and then I'm gonna obviously put out the question. Okay, so start off. I'm just gonna say where this guy was born at. So this driver was born in California. Okay, there's a lot of drivers that are born in California.
Does not narrow it down, but okay.
Yeah, this driver won 15 career times in the Cup Series. This driver is known for a tremendous comeback that beat all the odds. And I got the last one. This driver is the winner of the 1991 Daytona 500. Do y'all want to take a swing?
Oh, I have a guess, but I feel like I'm way off, like way too before, like way after this. Is this Ernie Irving?
That is correct.
Boom! Let's go. I got it. Let's go.
Going forward, I will try and get more questions, okay? But unfortunately, I didn't have a whole lot of time this past week to do it. I really enjoy this segment. So, yes, it is Ernie Irvin. Again, I posted about it on the Reddit. And, again, big in NASCAR Reddit now, I guess.
The NASCAR Reddit that I'm still banned on. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just really big on posting about these. I just really look forward to posting about these guys because, again, a lot of these drivers that I'm going to be looking up, I never saw a race. I feel like it'll be a little bit before I get to the drivers that I actually grew up watching. But it just allows me to get back into NASCAR history. And for Ernie Irvin, obviously, I think I think he has a badass nickname, Swervin' Irvin. And, he definitely has a memorable paint scheme. Again, he ran that 28 car. He ran the 4 Kodak car too, similar to the guy that we talked about last week with Sterling Marlin. 15-time winner. People said that he reminds them of a Ross Chastain type. I'd imagine that's what I was going to get in those comments. I did. I kind of do see it, and obviously, I thought that last question I got was like, or like not the last question, the second to last question, where I said he beat all the odds. He really did. He crashed at practice in Michigan, left him with a 10% chance to live, had a skull fracture, I think, and all that. And he was he was back to driving like within a year. And, that's credit to him and the doctors that saved his life and all that. And, he won't go down as obviously the all-time great driver because I feel like we were robbed of his prime because when he got hurt, he was in the middle of his prime. But obviously, it's grateful that he's still here, and obviously, I feel like with guys like this, it's a nice time to remember him.
Yeah. My first thought will always is his nickname, the ironic part, Swervin' Irvin. He's kind of an interesting guy to look back on. He wasn't a championship guy. He really wasn't all that in the conversation. I looked up his stats. He did have a great 1991 season. So I'm going to actually reference my grandpa. My grandpa watched NASCAR in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s. He was a big Dale Earnhardt fan. He always liked Ernie Irvan. Ernie Irvan was always one of those guys that he said he always rooted for personally. He said it was always Dale Earnhardt and Dale Earnhardt, and if Earnhardt wasn't winning, he wanted it to be Mark Martin. And, and then I asked, what about other guys? Who was like, I really liked Ricky Rudd, always respected Ricky Rudd, and I always liked Ernie Irvan. Ernie Irvan was always one of those. I remember Irvan for driving the 28 car. But yeah, like you said, it's a miracle he is here. I knew about the Michigan story. It is a miracle, and it truly is an inspiring story that he beat all the odds and still was able to race afterwards too. Yeah, that's my thoughts on Ernie Irvan.
I think that Ernie was in the wrong era. And I say that not from more of a persona standpoint, but time of racing. Because look at the drivers he was having to compete with between 87 and then when he finally hung it up. Is that you had the Earnhardts, you had Petty at the end of his career, you had Rusty, you had Dale, and we can go on and on. But then you had Dale Jarrett that also joined him. You had the 88 and the 28 there for a little while. But that era of drivers, the Mark Martins of the world. But the era of drivers, I don't think he had quite the chance to really show his abilities because of who he was having to race against week in and week out. He was good. And I think that if he would have been a little bit later in his career, he would have been a lot more dominant than what we had seen in that time. So, yeah, Ernie was okay. I wasn't a big fan, but he was not a guy that I did not like. So, yeah.
Yeah, he was in that era where, well, I mean, I think all drivers are kind of, you could say, all gutsy, hard-nosed, old-school guys, but he definitely fit that mold. But I think you're right on that. Like, if he was in a different era, like later, I guess you could say, or even, sooner, I think he'd be better. But yeah, I definitely remember, I briefly remember, I mean, obviously I was not born, but I briefly remember his history in the 28 with Yates Racing. But I mainly remember him driving that 4 from Morgan McClure and then getting the 500 win at 91. But he was recently on the Dale Jr. download, I think a couple months ago. He was talking about all this, about his wreck at Michigan and then coming back. It's a pretty good listen. If you guys are interested in Ernie Irving, Swervin' Irvin, it's a good listen on his story, his history, and then how he was able to come back and wanted to come back and and it also it was interesting here like how he filled in. he took the 28 over from Davey Allison when Davey Allison lost his life, and how he took the ride over, and he knew what he had to do in that ride. It was a storied, historic ride in the 28, and all that. So it's a good listen to hear his thoughts on that, and how he's with us still today, and you get historic drivers like that. As for me getting that guess, honestly, what got it for me was when you said like crazy comeback. I was like, I think it's Ernie. And then when he said 91 500, I was thinking like, oh, is it 91? Like I was thinking like around, for whatever reason in my mind, I'm like, no, it's 93. I don't know why I got those mixed up, but yeah, good segment there, Zachary. But anyway, guys, do you have anything else to add? All right, go for it.
No, go ahead.
I just thought of something. Is like this is what I thought. I'm grateful that the NASCAR season is as long as it is, but I feel like it needs another like a week off, similar to what we're getting this weekend at Easter, just because, specifically I'm just talking from like the point of view of like the crews that go on the road a lot. They just basically have barely any off weeks at all. I feel like, it'd be better if they had another week off, just because again, it takes a lot of wear and tear on the body. And, I feel like for me personally, I actually do enjoy a break here and there from watching NASCAR because, you might run into these races like it was last weekend where it seems like it's just a chore to watch because nothing's going on. So I'm just saying that I would appreciate if they added like an extra week off, specifically just for like the teams and whatnot, but also I would actually enjoy it too.
Not a bad topic at all, honestly. I mean, when I did get to travel with the NASCAR Youth Series, after 1 week of doing that, I was exhausted, and I needed a day to recuperate because I only got a couple hours of sleep doing all this stuff at the track and all that. So I can only imagine what the on the road guys, the crew guys, and everyone that's even a part of NASCAR, setting up all these events each and every week, how tired they are. And everything that goes into that, all the media, all the TV and everything, even as much crap as we give Fox, they have to do a lot too. But yeah, I totally get what you're trying, what you're talking about here. Yeah, I'd like a Sunday off, so I could go play golf or something like that or something too. But man, I love that NASCAR's on pretty much every week. It gives me something to do. But yeah, good topic. But I'm sure with all the other sports and everything that NASCAR is trying to fit in between, it's like the only logistical way, sadly. Well, all right, that's going to be it from all of us here at Moonshiners Racing. I'm your host, Michael Rizzo, joined with Zachary Kendall, Aiden Fortney, and Bunny joining us. We will see you guys possibly next week if we have big enough news to talk about on the NASCAR side of things. If not, tune into all the rest of our shows. We will be live next week as well, so tune in, and we'll see you guys next week, if not the week after.